What's going on, Summoners? Welcome back to another patch preview, this time for 11.13. I'm Kangas, and the reason I'm so excited today is because next patch is absolutely jam-packed with changes. This is actually one of the fully loaded ones with mobility, new items, and even some champion balance on the way. So make sure to hit that sub button, and let's hop right into it. First up, let's go over the system nerfs. One item in particular is receiving one, and that is Divine Sunderer. But before sinking into despair or crying tears of joy, depending on your perspective, let me first tell you that this nerf is only for ranged champions. One particular champion's probably coming to your mind, and that is absolutely Ezreal, who has unsurprisingly made the switch to this item after its previous buff. My guess is that the damage is there to stay, but healing is going to go down in the near future. With this change, the item will be better suited for bruisers and fighters looking to crack through tanky frontliners, and sometimes even each other. And although we only had one system nerf, we got a bunch of buffs to talk about and even more adjustments in a little bit. Maybe you've heard, maybe you haven't, but we got a couple of new items coming next patch as well. The first is Anathema's Chains. I think I'm saying that one right. This is a tank item, which is cool because we don't have that much variety in those items right now, and this one seems like a ton of fun to build. I'm not going to comment on the numbers because those are bound to change, but the theme of this item is that you build it as a tank and choose one specific champion on the enemy team to hunt down. You choose a single enemy player to be your nemesis. Over time, you build up a vendetta and reduce the damage that you take from them up to a certain cap. Also, when you have max stacks and are near that same enemy champion, their tenacity is actually reduced by 20%. My crazy ridiculous hope is that the tenacity can actually go negative, and tanks will be able to utilize crowd control to keep fed carries in check. And another new item coming up is Hullbreaker. This item is intended to replace Sanguine Blade, which unfortunately really hasn't found the right niche in the metagame. Originally intended to be a split-pushing item, the item ended up too oppressive on assassins when it was strong, so it got nerfed to the ground. Also, split pushing is just not that popular in League of Legends right now, but if you're trying to improve that specific strategy, we got courses and coaches at ProGuides.com that will help you learn all the ins and outs. Anyway, Sanguine Blade's replacement is intended to provide power specifically to help players take down turrets. When no other allies are nearby, the owner of Hullbreaker will gain bonus armor and magic resist, as well as increased damage to turrets. Nearby allied large minions, aka siege and super minions, also gain armor and magic resist, as well as a significant increase to their damage to turrets. Left unchecked, you will quickly bulldoze through any lane. Finally, let's talk about the items that are already in the game. Mage players are in for a very sweet treat because a ton of their items are receiving buffs. Luden's Tempest, Liandry's Anguish, and Everfrost are all on the list. Those are three major mythic items receiving buffs, and the mid lane meta might see some shifts as a result. Moonstone Renewer is also receiving another buff, along with the minor rune Ghost Poro. Enchanters have been slowly making a comeback, and with this final push, we are bound to see more variety for supports. Now for the final adjustments next patch, we have to discuss mobility creep. If you've been keeping up with any champions in our meta, movement speed has been way too powerful this season. A bunch of items give you that boost, and the extra speed, while yes, fun to play with, does create its own issues. Bad mobility is supposed to be a weakness to balance out other strengths, but the items are too powerful right now, and you can actually circumvent weaknesses implemented into a champion's design, as long as you're willing to spend the gold. We have a video on our channel covering these changes, so if you missed them or want to review the details, make sure to check it out. But nonetheless, the following items are receiving nerfs next patch: Shirelia's Battle Song, Cosmic Drive, Gale Force, and Prowler's Claw. The Rune Nimbus Cloak is also receiving a nerf to its highest tier movement speed bonus. There are other changes, but these are simply adjustments, like replacing lost mobility with more power elsewhere. Items receiving adjustments are Stridebreaker, Trinity Force, Lichbane, Black Cleaver, Deadman's Plate, and Death's Dance. While Force of Nature was originally included on the list, Riot actually pulled back on the changes for that item and is looking to do more work on it. But that's all the system changes, so we can finally talk about champion balance. Coming in with nerfs, we have Rumble, Lee Sin, and Riven. Starting with the two junglers, these two come as no surprise. Rumble's win rate, while low overall, is acceptable in elite levels of play. Some still think that he's a bit too strong, but my guess is that what bothers Riot the most is that he's significantly more popular there instead of the solo lanes. By nerfing his jungling, he'll potentially move back to the top in mid lane instead. Lee Sin has been the absolute king of the jungle for some time now, and Riot has finally decided to pull the plug on all the fun. He's also been a top-tier solo laner as well in pro play, so I'm not surprised that he's a target for nerfs next patch. Finally, Riven has been dominant in higher elos, consistently ending above a 52% win rate, and even pushing close to 53%. Although she seems to be fine when considering the entire player base, she is way too dominant at the top levels of play. Now let's talk about buffs. Xayah, Aphelios, Olaf, and Dr. Mundo are all up on the docket. Dr. Mundo buffs in particular are surprising to me. He's actually doing very well in low and mid elo, but he has been underperforming in higher elo, and that's probably why he's up for some buffs, but still seems a little weird to me. Zion and Aphelios continue to fall behind other marksmen, and Riot's hopefully done punishing them by feeding them table scraps, and will actually give them a real meal. Olaf was gutted much earlier this season, but I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of okay with that one. And even though I didn't enjoy playing against OP Olaf, I will still admit that nerfs were a bit too much, so he's due for some love next patch. Finally, we have 2 champion adjustments. The first is that Viego is receiving changes to push him out of the mid lane and back into the jungle where he was initially designed to be. My guess is he'll receive damage nerfs, but receive increased damage to jungle monsters. Something simple like that. Tahm Kench is the final champion to mention. His mini rework is finally here. We've been talking about his changes for what feels like a couple years now. Essentially, his W and R have been changed. The hop into his belly and go on an adventure will no longer be his ultimate, and instead, devouring an ally or an enemy is now his strongest ability, as it's receiving increased damage on enemy cast, as well as a bonus shield on ally cast. These are crazy changes, and I'm excited to see how things play out for him next patch, especially now that the fasting Senna lane will definitely be different. And that'll cover our 11.3 patch preview. Really hope you enjoyed it, and let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. We'll make sure to provide a full list of changes as soon as we learn all the intricacies, so keep an eye on the channel. Best of luck on the Rift Summoners, stay hydrated, and I'll see you in the next one.